Before beginning your audio project, it's probably a good idea to make a folder that you can keep all of your assets in. I'll make a new folder and give it a name. Inside that, I'm just going to copy some sounds I already have. With these audio files in my project folder, I can open Audition and get started. To bring in our audio, we must import them. To do this, we use File, Import, File. This allows us to bring in as many audio files as we need, and they appear here in this Files window. By double-clicking on a particular file, we can bring up its waveform in the waveform view. This allows us to work on an individual piece of audio. We can add effects to it, we can change its volume and things like that. So first, we can play and stop our recording by pressing the spacebar. And we might also trim it or edit it. So for example, if I didn't want this part, I can just select all the parts that I don't want by clicking and dragging over them and pressing the backspace or delete button. Now I have the bit that I want, I can make some changes to it. If I want to affect the whole track with any changes I make, I can just leave it blank like this, so I don't need to select it all. The first change we might want to make is to the volume. This little floating tool helps us do that. By clicking and dragging it clockwise, I can increase the volume, and by clicking and dragging it anti-clockwise, I can reduce it right down to -96 decibels, which is essentially silent. I'm going to undo that by pressing Command and Z. If I wanted to affect just part of the track, I can highlight it and then apply the volume to make just part of it louder. You'll notice also that when I select an area of the audio clip, it will loop that section. So in order to listen to it in context, I would deselect it and play from the beginning. As well as altering the volume, there are lots of other effects we can put onto our clip. An easy way to do that is to use the effects rack here. If you can't see the effects rack, you can choose Window and Effects Rack. I can press this little white triangle and choose from the effects rack. Here we've got a few different categories, and within each one are several effects. When we choose an effect, it should bring up a dialog box. In this case, I've got a little warning, but I'm happy with that, and I'm going to continue. Here in the reverb settings, I can make use of some of the presets. Most effects will have some presets attached to them, and these will give you instant results to change your sound. You can quite clearly hear the echo on that now. If I choose a different preset, it provides a different type of sound, so you can find the one that suits your needs. As well as presets, you can change all of the settings individually by using sliders or sometimes graphs where you can move anchor points. Once you're happy with your settings, you can close this window and you can see the setting over here in the effects rack. If I wanted to add more effects, I can simply add them underneath. For example, this filter. This makes use of presets and also allows you to drag anchor points up and down on this graph to change the sound. Again, once you're happy, you can press this close button and that's added there. Once you're happy with all of the effects you've added, you can hit the apply button. This will apply them to the audio, and if we play it back, we can hear it with those changes that we've made. At this point, you can see that the file now has an asterisk next to it, indicating that it hasn't been saved. Because I've made changes to this file, I want to save it as a different file name from the original, so that I don't lose my original. To do this, I will choose File, Save As, and I'll rename it something a little different and press OK. Audition handily gives me a little warning if I'm about to save a file that has been modified, so I can just press yes. Now you can see there's no asterisks and the new file name is shown. Once you're happy with all of your audio files, it's time to bring them together. To do this, we switch to multi-track mode. When we make a new multi-track session, we have to give it a title. And we choose somewhere to save it. There are some settings we can change here. I'm not going to change any of them now, but I am going to press OK. Here in the multi-track editor, we're given multiple tracks into which we can load our audio files. You will also see that it's created a new session file which records all the information about how we combine these tracks. So to begin, I'll bring in some music. This has gone in track 1 and I can press space just as before to play that and stop it. I'm going to turn the volume down a little because it's quite overpowering. And then I can begin to bring in other audio. I have some other music that I can bring in, and if I place that next to my existing music, it will sequence up. However, they don't go together very well. However, if I drag my new clip so that it overlaps the previous clip, it creates a crossfade for me, helping to bring those two separate pieces of audio together. As well as putting things into the same track so that you can crossfade between them, you can put things on separate tracks. For example, I can use my break-in sound here. I can also add other sounds along the way. If you get your sounds from different sources, this is quite common. You can usually just press OK and it's OK. And again, I can drag those into position. If I wanted to, I could then bring other sounds into other tracks. And I can also use some similar controls to that which I had earlier and layer up different sound in different tracks so that they can all be combined into one audio sequence. In addition to sequencing the tracks, I can also trim them. One way of doing this is to hover over the end of a clip and drag it so it ends where I want it to. Alternatively, you can use the razor tool to place your cursor over a clip and split it into multiple clips, removing or rearranging the ones you don't want. As you can see, this has left me with a gap at the start of the sequence. I can select all of my clips and drag them backwards so they start at the start. If I want to listen to tracks in isolation, I can press this S button. If I want to mute a track, I can press the M button. I can change the volume on each of the tracks using this dial, and whether it's in the left or right channels using this dial. In multi-track mode, we can add effects to entire tracks by selecting the track, coming over to our effects rack, and choosing the effect we want from a list. This time though, when we play it, unless we've muted other tracks, everything will play together. So if I choose a particular effect to apply and press the space bar, you'll have to listen quite carefully to be able to pick that up. So it might be a good idea whilst adding effects just to mute those other tracks. Again, once you're happy, you can press the red X and that is applied to the track. To choose a particular clip, we must select clip and then choose clip effects. Again, choosing the effects in the same way. Sometimes we might want to fade in and fade out our tracks, and in order to do that, we might need to get a little closer. Taking a look at this first track, normal music, I'll mute the other two. We can see there's a grey square at the start. If you can't see it or it's difficult to grab, use the zoom bar at the top. By drawing these closer together, it zooms in on our tracks and we can see them more clearly. We can also slide this along to look at different parts of the track. Using this grey box at the start of the track, I can click and drag, and you should hear that fade in. Perhaps I'll make it more dramatic. And you should hear that fade in. Likewise, you can treat the end of the track by making it fade out. Select the track and drag the grey box and then have a listen. To zoom out again, we can just pull these further apart. As well as fading in and out, we might want to change the volume during the clip. Again, working with the music layer, I'll zoom in and select a part to do this with. Here you'll see on each track there is a yellow line. This is the volume line. By clicking on that line and dragging it upwards or downwards, we can increase or decrease the volume. However, if we click and let go, it leaves us with an anchor point. By having at least 2 anchor points, we can create a difference in the volume at those times. I'll create a third one here, which I can drag around like this. And if I just remove the fade in, what we should hear is the volume go down and then go up again. So we can change the volume throughout a clip, as well as fading in and out at the ends. It's always worth giving your track a final listen to before you export it. So you can unmute everything that you intend to export and press space to have a little listen. And make any changes if you need to. The final step, once we're happy with everything we've done to our audio, is to export it. For this we choose File, Export, Multi-track Mixdown. Then I'm going to choose Entire Session because I'd like all of the audio in all of my tracks to be exported. It gives it a name based on the original file name, and you should also choose where to export it and the file format. You can see some of the settings of the file here, and you have the option to change some of these. I'm going to press OK. Once it's complete, you should save your Adobe Audition file by choosing File and Save. As you can see, this has brought up a warning telling me that some of my tracks are outside of the same folder that the session has been saved to. In this case, I'm just going to press yes. Once that's complete, we can minimize or exit Audition and listen to our track. Here's the file, and we can preview it here or open it in your music player. Being an MP3, this can be shared with others, but of course you've saved your Audition file, so you can always come back and make tweaks if needed.